You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Fonte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
Подача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. He ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. And I'm enjoying my day mostly because I'm joined by a guest to help us introduce this week's show. So Will Dawe of the Saints Archive, welcome back to the show, and thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, excellent. I'm glad to enjoy it. A bit different to the last time we had a chat. It's pitch black here at night time, and I think you're in sort of workplace California, aren't you?
I am. I've closed the windows though, so nobody knows that I'm actually technically on my lunch, so we're fine. But I didn't need anybody to see me sitting here on a Skype call because it looks a little bit different than the Zoom call that we use for school. So anyway, but all good here. The weather's good. I should say, quite a few people reached out over the weekend to say either happy birthday, so thank you to you, or to check in on us because of the fires that are going on. But just so everybody knows, we are safe. There's no fire near us. The only thing that's near us is smoke, and it's clearing up. So as long as everybody stays, as long as all that continues, we'll be all good. But yeah, I mean, everything's going all right here. But everything going well with you?
Yeah, it's all been good. The weekend, sort of a decent weather here. There, went to the pub with a few friends, so which was nice, even though you have to socially distance.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's it like to be back in a pub? Is that the first time you've been out since lockdown?
It's the second time back at my local pub. A few of my army mates sort of took my advice about getting out of the house for a bit and actually starting to do normal things. And to be fair, once after a few pints, everyone sort of throws the social distance, 2 meter distancing out the window, and everyone's just hugging each other and shaking hands and breaking every rule the government are trying to tell us not to do at the moment. And, you know, to be fair, I'd like to think that life's sort of not returning back to a sense of normality, even if it just is a bit slow at the moment.
Yeah, it's difficult because we're struggling with the same thing over here, where it's a lot of people have just gone full. Everything's fine, even though we don't have pubs or anything open yet. It's just restaurants, and you got to sit outdoors. But it's really hard to find the line. And we have to wear masks all day at work, and all for that. And so I don't know. It's a whole weird thing. But it is nice to see people you haven't been able to see for a long time, though. That is the good part, because we missed that part of it. And I guess part of that is why the fixtures coming out and us having something to look forward to. Maybe for being able to see everybody in the normal kind of circumstances, in the normal I guess stadiums and everything else, that we might actually be looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think from the vibes of the Premier League and a lot of the clubs and UK government's advice as well, that stadiums, I believe, are going down a sort of approach of having it sort of half filled, maybe social distance, no away supporters for the first 3 or 4 games, maybe, just to get a vibe of how it can be managed and how things can slowly be brought back in. But, we're all kind of in it together in this respect. So I have a season ticket, but moving into the season, I may not be able to go to the first couple of games because I might not be successful in the ballot. Mm-hmm. But the club have offered the money back that's lost on any game that they decide that you can't go to because they've chosen someone else. And it's people's health at the end of the day comes first. As much as we both love football and everybody loves everything so associated about the Saints, getting people back to a football match as opposed to people's health isn't really a priority. It's people first on this one, and Southampton will still be supported regardless of where we are in the world or what we're doing or if we're in the stadium or not. So I mean, yeah, I'd like to be back with 30 odd thousand fellow supporters, and but we got to take these things sort of easily and softly. So no, I'm just if you look at it positively, we're going in the right direction now. We're
Absolutely.
not thinking about locking down everything again. We're actually talking about getting things up and running again, and that's what we got to think positively about.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you mentioned your season ticket holder, so there are some matches coming up. There won't be any away support initially, so I guess that game at Palace, we'll just have to watch James Ward-Prowse shove Zaha in his pocket from a distance. But then Spurs to open the season at home just a week later. I mean, is that there seems to be something there with Spurs developing over the last couple of seasons where the matches tend to be good. The game seemed to be somewhat intense. And I don't know. I think that's a pretty decent couple of opening fixtures, especially, the history we have with Palace over recent history as well.
Oh, yeah, completely. I mean, the whole Zaha thing is between him and Ward-Prowse has been ongoing and bubbling for a little while. And, we always kind of like thinking, well, is it going to happen again this season? And to be fair, I think Ward-Prowse has been living in Zaha's head rent-free for the last 2 seasons because he's got to him. He really has got to him. He's wound him up. As for the Spurs game, was at that I think the game on New Year's Day against Tottenham, which we won. And yet again, there was a little bit of like animosity towards Dele Alli in that one because he spent a good portion of the game just diving all over our penalty area and rolling around and cheating like crazy. And where we were sat in the chapel end of that particular game, he came up for a fair amount of verbal pleasantries, may I put it, for his conduct from Saints supporters. But yeah, I mean, it's the atmosphere on both those games because of those sort of incidents between, say, Zaha and Dele Alli. Certainly had a bit of spice to the game, and and to go straight into a season with those 2 games, I'm looking forward to it, and the London teams as well. So it's always nice to turn them up.
And just to keep things consistent, we do have Burnley in the first month of the season, so I'm just glad we didn't open away there again, or even against them. At least we have some excitement before we have to settle in for 90 minutes of them going long and us not dealing with it. Absolutely. And then I just kind of glancing through, I mean, I remember last season there were a couple of really tough runs looking at the fixtures, and this season, just kind of looking through it, we have West Brom at the beginning of October. There's a promoted team. We'll wonder if Charlie Austin is around. He could return to St. Mary's there. I think we have Fulham in December. And I don't know. I mean, were there any other matches? I don't think we play Leeds until into January. So are there anything else that any matches that you're really looking forward to having at home?
I don't know. After the last couple of seasons of, I would say not particularly so much this season, but the bad start to the season we had this year, and maybe the Mark Hughes tenure the season before Ralph took over, I'm reluctant to look forward to starts of seasons or any kind of run of games because you never know with Saints. Right. Because you could predict, say sort of like, oh yeah, that run of games there, we'll breeze that, but then, or that would be difficult. But this is Southampton, they do like to be totally unpredictable and I think really put you through things. So, no game's an easy game in the Premier League, and any wins or a draw is a decent result regardless. So, I don't know. I'm keeping my cards close to my chest on that, I think.
All right. Yeah, I think that's fair. We do have a kind of a weird trip in February. We have United on a Tuesday night and then Newcastle away on Saturday. So that's a couple of long trips for supporters there. If we're able to go to games by that point, which we'll just hope. And then I just looked to the very end of the season, ending against West Ham away. I have very bad memories of that place from the 3-0 we lost there. At the only game I've ever actually attended in person. But we'll stick to the positives for now. And the real reason I have you on is this week we are replaying the first ever player interview that you did in association with Total Saints podcast as Total Recall. And I just wanted to kind of ask you a couple of questions just about it. And I guess we'll just start with, what was it like trying to get Jim MacCalliog onto the show? What was the, what was the process for finding him? And we mentioned last time we talked that he's quite active in the Saints Archive and in the Facebook group, and he enjoys having a chat. So was it at all difficult to get him on the show?
No, not at all. He was, when we started over 2.5 years ago, I don't know for certain, but I think I always felt he was one of the first former Saints to join the group and interact. And I think he hit the ground running with us. So I just sort of pinged him a message and sort of said, look, Jim, do you fancy doing the podcast with us? And I explained it's kind of like a radio interview, but over the internet. And he was on board straight away. He was really keen to talk about not just his Southampton career, but, talk about his international games he's had, talk about maybe his time with Wolves. So, obviously the core of the interview was with Jim and his Southampton career, and particularly that FA Cup final in '76 and what it kind of meant to him and what it felt. But he's easygoing. He's just one of the lads. He got on board. He chatted away. I could have spoke to him for hours, to be fair. He was that really relatable and a real pleasure to talk to.
Yeah, and so you do the interview that people are going to hear in just a second. It's you and Leon, correct?
It was me, Leon, and Ben from TSP. We got Leon on because me and Ben were too young to have been alive for the cup final, so we needed someone that could have thrown in their own memories. Yeah,
and so Leon was actually there that day, and so he's got he takes the first kind of couple of questions, and you can. We've all watched the game. We've all seen the goal. We've all heard the call, probably thousands of times. But to have somebody who was actually there and get to relive that, it just listening back through it even sounds, just listening to him talk about it, it sounds special because it's that, to all of us, that the 76 Cup final sticks out as one of those as the moment almost. And for a supporter to be there and then be able to talk to the guy who played the pass that led to the goal that won the game, it's a pretty big kind of couple of moments. And Ben does point out as he comes in to ask a question that, nobody had asked about it yet, but he wanted to ask about the past. So it is nice that there is chat of that in there. But I guess one of the things that would also stick out to me is this is a well-established kind of professional player at the time that he comes to Southampton. And, you kind of wonder what drew him in. And it was the team that was around at the time that kind of drew him in. And so people will hear that as well. So I just wanted to ask you again, when you had him on, what were you feeling like right before, you got him on the phone? Were there a lot of nerves for you, or did Ben have more, or what was going on there?
Well, if Ben had nerves, he certainly keeps him well composed position on himself. I know in other interviews that we've done with other players, he has said to me, "Oh, no, I'm really quite nervous about this one," but I think he probably remained a lot more confident with Jim that it was going to be a good one. I had nerves because, to be fair, I have nervous with a lot of the interviews. This one in particular, it was the first time we had really run with a player interview, and you're essentially talking to a club legend, somebody that very few people for Southampton Football Club can say that they won a domestic honour for the club, and literally our only major domestic honour as well, and to have that go down in folklore at the club like that, and to be talking to somebody that was key and instrumental in making that actual goal by Bobby Stokes. It was our last. I was saying to you before we start recording. We won't get a chance to talk to Bobby about the goal because unfortunately, as we all know, God bless him, he passed on a few years back. So talking to Jim allows us to have that dip into history as one of the key people in that making of the goal. And, he goes into other stuff as well about, the United fans giving him a bit of grief because he was a former United player and he'd gone to Southampton and then beaten Manchester United as former club with Southampton, a lower league team that they were never expected by the bookmakers to get a result there. And I don't know, it's odd. I've probably worried myself all day long, to be fair, about, I'm going to talk to a club legend tonight. I'm going to talk to a club legend tonight. And I worked myself up probably too much. But then as soon as he started talking, it's like, oh, what am I worrying about? It's like talking to, Jim I met down the pub, or Jim who worked down the local store. He put everyone at ease really quick with the before we start recording, sort of, oh yeah, boys, I really appreciate coming on talking about this. I really appreciate your time for bringing me along. And he was, if anything, more appreciative and respectful of the fact that we'd put it together rather than us, I suppose, in awe of this guy. Because, as I keep saying, he's part of a generation of people that, for him, he played football for the love, not for the money. And I mean, he owns a bed and breakfast up in Scotland now, and he's got a good following by Wolves supporters in particular. So it's not just us that keep him close to heart; it's other teams as well. But to us, he'll always be that legend, that one of the 76 boys that that brought the silverware home against all the odds as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So people will hear that just kind of momentarily, and I just wanted to say again to you, thank you to you and to Ben and to Leon for putting the work in and building these interviews up and getting them done. And if people haven't heard them yet, this is your chance to kind of be introduced to hopefully what we'll be doing more of going forward from here. But before we get into the actual interview, you had a couple of pieces of kind of Saints history. You've been doing the kind of on this day in Saints history. You've been putting it out on Instagram and all over social media and in the archive group. So, and I think you had a couple, if you wouldn't mind kind of going through them now, that might fit as people go through their week.
Yeah, by all means. I mean, I've got a couple that I've picked out. I mean, obviously, you're going out live with this tomorrow, aren't you? Which is the 25th.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Cool. So I found one. It's actually, I've stolen them out of a book, by Graham Healy. So I hope he's cool with that. You can buy his book still on Amazon. But it's Saints on this day, history, facts, and figures from every day of the year. And I kind of use it as my Bible, just to check back in, see what happened. It's an interesting, like the little small paragraphs of information. So on the 25th of August 2001, which incidentally was a Saturday, a long-awaited first league game at Saints' new stadium proved something of an anticlimax. Stuart Gray's side were well beaten by Chelsea, who won 2-0 with goals by Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and Mario Stanic in front of 31,107 fans. So that's a little bit of info. I've also got Saturday, 26th of August, so a little on later on in the week for listeners, in 1922. So Saints made their bow in Division 2 and immediately got a taste of the problems of playing in a non-regionalised division for the first time. Their opening fixture was away to north-east side South Shields, and the train journey there took 20 hours, and all for a 0-0 draw. So you can imagine nowadays, if you took a 20-hour journey to go and watch an away match and it finished 0-0, you'd be pretty peeved with that.
I'm trying to think about how many hours it took me to travel to West Ham, and it was fewer than that, and I was still pretty peeved. But that's okay. What
did you do? Travel from the States over to London, and then sort of do it that way, or did you do a bit of other bits of traveling in the meantime?
No, we went straight from LA to London, and then to the hotel, and then it seemed like about 47 minutes between the time I got to go to sleep that night and Freddie was at the door waiting for me in the morning. So it was, but I want to say that the flight was like 11 hours. So not that bad. And then in about an hour on the train, because we went to Gatwick. We didn't go to Heathrow, but that's just because it was cheaper. And it's also why we flew overnight, but that's okay. If we bring that up around my wife, she'll let you know how she feels.
Well, you would have coped well in 1922. Then with a 20-hour train journey, you would have been like, I'll just go to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, it is always interesting to get those little tidbits of history. And I know that people like that stuff, that you oftentimes put out similar kind of things on Instagram and Twitter and in the Facebook group. So people can come in and check that out if they want to go. And they can head over to the website with everything that is in the show notes for all the links that you need to get there. So I think at this point we should let the people get on with the interview. And Will, I just want to say thanks again. It's been a pleasure to work with you so far, and I look forward to doing it more in the future.
Yeah, I have started getting the feelers out for players that we haven't already interviewed already. So moving forward, you got the Jim MacCalliog episode, which is kind of a preview, if you've not already heard it before, of what the sort of stuff we can do. And then hopefully in the next upcoming weeks, we'll be able to announce sort of episodes or recalls with former players that we have got on board. So, yeah, stay tuned. I mean, it's good times ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Will, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Hi, Jim. We've obviously got a few questions for you tonight, and we really do appreciate you joining us for this podcast. I do believe Leon wants to go first on this one, so Leon, crack away.
Thanks, Will. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening, Leon.
Great to have you on, and everybody appreciates that.
Yeah, it's a thrill to be on. I've been looking forward to it.
The first question then, Jim. Tell me the story of how it came about when you signed for Saints.
I had fallen out with the assistant managers at Manchester United. There was a little problem with him, and it kind of escalated, and Tommy Docherty made a decision that maybe in the best interest of the club that I would leave. So that was how it came about. I was playing well at the club. I'd settled in really well. It was disappointing, but to come to the Saints and to play with Mick Shannon and Peter Osgood and all the other boys, well, it wasn't too big a disappointment. And of course, I love my time at the Saints. So, life was good, really.
I've got a few questions, Jim, from some of our followers on both Facebook and Twitter.
Yes.
Let's go with Marlon on Twitter. What made you want to join the Saints?
What wanted me to join the Saints really was to play with Mickey and play with Peter Osgood. Peter, I had played with Peter as a young boy, a young professional at Chelsea. Peter was a great lad, great footballer, and I was looking forward to playing again with Peter. And of course, Mickey was the England forward then. And he was probably the first choice that was coming out of the hat, really, for forward positions. And having played against Mickey, I was certainly looking forward to knocking a few balls through for him.
Fantastic. I mean, there's some big names there that you mentioned. And just looking back on the footage, obviously, through Saints Archive and what we've done, and you playing a big part in it as well, particularly for fans of my age group, you build on a bigger picture and a bigger story of the club. And having you interact with our members and talk about the good times and even the bad times occasionally, it's certainly adds a real interactive feel to the club we support. So thank you. But I do have a couple more questions from some of our Twitter users.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we got Doug McClellan. He has asked a really good question, actually. He said, from which players in the current Saints side would you have liked to have played alongside? I
watched the Saints a little while ago, and I was quite impressed by Nathan Redmond when they moved him to more of a central role. It didn't restrict him to being down the line alone. I think he's a very quick player, and he's also got two good feet. And I think, hopefully they will keep him down the middle because, he's very pacey. And defenders don't like pacey forwards. They're always trying to go back a yard or whatever. But with somebody like Redmond, it'd be difficult to mark. Looking at some of the other players there, they weren't doing so well at the particular time I seen them. Obviously, the manager has changed since then. It looked to me like they were dreading playing at St Mary's. I think the confidence was low, so it's always difficult to play when your confidence is low, and unless you've got great characters in the team who can lift some of the boys in the dressing room besides playing their own game and keeping on top of their own game. But I think that's what's lacking a bit at Southampton, that they perhaps need a leader. There's nobody there that seems to me that's leading. And I think maybe if we could get a couple of leaders in, maybe one in the middle of the park and maybe a defender, I think that would be a big plus for the Saints.
Yeah, I love Redmond. I think he's a brilliant player. I think sometimes unfair criticism for some of his performances. He certainly, I think, improved a lot this season under Ralph.
Yeah, I think when you're a forward, you will always be coming under criticism, because when you're a forward, either a midfield player or a striker or a wide player, you're having to try and create things. Whereas defenders, obviously, a lot of their game is to stop you playing. So they're facing the ball most of the time. So as a forward, either a midfield player or striker, you have to be trying to accept the ball on the turn, and different skills come into it. So it's always that bit more difficult to be a forward player, I think.
Yeah. I've got one final question from one of our Facebook users before Leon and Ben have their say. But Paul Warner wants to ask, looked like you were getting some stick from Man United fans on the lap of honour in the 76 final. All he wants to know is can you remember what they were saying? I suppose not all of it was clean.
To be honest, I couldn't care less. I wasn't particularly interested in what they were thinking. The main thing was on the Friday before the game, I told you I left Manchester United because of a problem with the assistant manager. But I recall him on the Friday afternoon when we were already at Wembley, the Saints team, and Man U came in, and he come over straight away. I was talking to Stuart Pearson and some of the Man U lads who I knew very well, and he started saying to me, "Oh, Jimmy Mac, you should be playing for us tomorrow." And that was on the Friday, and I looked at him and I says, "Cav," I says, "I don't want to play for you tomorrow because we're going to beat you." I says, and that's it. And then he started ranting and raving, but that kind of set everything up for me. So anything that might happen after the game, you know, it's neither here nor there because the cup was already won. We deserved it. You know, we were under the cosh for the first 20 minutes, but generally speaking, we had control of the game. And I don't remember their midfield player plus the two wingers getting a kick of the ball. So, no, it was a fabulous time. It was great for somebody like Mick and Hughie Fisher and some of the other guys that had been at the club and seen what had happened down through the years to actually be there and win a trophy. I think that was fabulous. So anything that Man United said at that particular time, I wouldn't be listening to. I'd just be enjoying myself for the boys.
Paul's going to particularly like that answer, and I know a few of the archive members and Total Saints podcast listeners will like as well.
Of course, on that day, Saints were 5-1, wasn't they, to win the cup? Just a couple of questions here. Got one from Martin BT, and also the same question from Kevin Marshall from Saints Archive. Just want to talk about the free kick against Bradford in the quarter-final, Jim, and they're asking, was that free kick rehearsed, or was it just off-the-cuff thing at the time?
No, it wasn't rehearsed. When we got the free kick, I'd always liked to be involved with free kicks and penalty kicks and dead ball situations and corner kicks. And in fact, I think if you could take a corner at the Dawe and place it accurately, which quite a lot of the times I used to take the corners, I think that was quite a feat, really, because it was a funny little area where you took the corner kicks at the Dawe. But as regards the free kick, we were stood over the ball, me and Oz, and all I said to Oz was, I said, "Oh, just lift it up in the air, but lift it forward." And as Peter looked at me as if to think, well, you know what? So I said, "Just lift it up." And he lifted it up, and of course, there was no way the defender, they usually have a charger in the defender to try and block something like that, but there was no way he could get me, really, because once it was up in the air and I'd positioned myself, it was over the wall and in the back of the net. The goalkeeper never moved. And it's quite an easy free kick. I know there was controversy about it, but to my way of thinking, and I've tried to be as objective as I can, the ball certainly went forward. As long as it goes forward a circumference of the ball, back then that was the rules. But I believe they maybe tried to change the rules a bit after that, but it certainly wasn't against the rules. And it was a lovely moment for myself. And I don't know what the hell I did, but I went to the right-hand side and I did a bit of I don't know, I think it was I clicked my heels together. But it was a fabulous moment, and, we were going further along the road than to the cup final.
Another quick question here from Tim Hill on Saints Archive. Was there a point at any time in the competition that you thought you would go all the way to Wembley, Jim?
Yes, definitely. The semi-final draw, we were in the dressing room, and the Dell dressing room. Then so as long as we kept Laurie out, there was a bit of room. But if Laurie come in, there was no room. He was such a big guy, and we were all sat there, and we had the press was there, and we had the obligatory radio there, and we were listening to the draw. And I was so, and everybody, we were wrapped up in that. And of course, once it come out, Derby and Man United, I just jumped up in the air because I knew that was it. We were in the final, and we were, I was positive that we would take care of Crystal Palace. And then it would be, like Mickey said, after we'd won the semi-final, we weren't going to Wembley to make up the sides. We were going there because we were going to win it.
Just another question I want to ask you, Jim. We've had some lovely clips of the dressing room at your time at Southampton, and I think Mick Shannon's son, he put a video on Saints Archive a little while ago. You're sat in the dressing room next to Peter Osgood, and Mick Shannon's next to Peter Osgood, I think. You and Peter are both very quiet, but Mick's ranting and raving his head off at half-time, and then you can suddenly hear Laurie saying, "Hold on a minute, lads, let me get a word in now, please." So, Jim, what was the dressing room like at Southampton at the time?
Well, this is what I said when we were talking earlier on, talking about the Saints today. They need somebody like that. They need people to discuss things in the dressing room and get them aired rather than, leaving the ground and perhaps going for a coffee somewhere and talking about it there. It's better to talk about it in front of all of the boys. And, Laurie wasn't, I don't think Laurie's particularly bothered, but Mick was an international. His opinion was very much valued. Like most of the other guys, there was quite a lot of them in there that would give an opinion, i.e. Mel Blythe or Jim Steele, and of course Ozzy would give his opinion, and we always had the experience of Hughie Fisher, because Hughie was, generally speaking, Hughie would be the sort of in between. He'd be the buffer and keep everybody a bit calm. But no, that was great. I mean, Mick is Mick. He was a wonderful footballer. He's a wonderful man. And that's the way a dressing room should be. Everybody out in the open, no behind backs, and talk in front of each other.
MacCalliog to Stokes is onside. 1-0. Southampton go mad. And on the bench they celebrate. And Stokes, by scoring the first goal in this final, wins for himself a car. And he said he'd already booked driving lessons. Now, was he offside when that ball was played? They'll complain for years possibly about that. But when he got there, he slotted it in, wins himself a car, and puts Southampton into the lead.
Hi Jim, it's Ben here. I host the podcast. So first things first, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and I've been listening away there very intently. I had three questions actually. So my first one was just, I can't believe we've got this far and not spoken about the goal yet. So I wanted you to tell us about your pass to Bobby. I mean, Bobby got all the credit for the goal, didn't he, Jim? But it was your pass.
Yeah, it was situations that we'd worked on on the training field, and we talked about before the game actually about the balls up to Ozzy and Ozzy to lay it back, and then trying to set Mickey and set Bobby free, Bobby Stokes. But as it turned round this time, when Ian kicked it, Ian Turner, our goalkeeper, it was Mickey that actually laid the ball off. But if you watch the film, you can see me as he lays it off. I know the ball's there. It's not running away from me. It's in a nice position. And all I'm doing then is what a good inside forward or a good midfield player would do, is look and weigh up your options. And I could hear Bobby in the inside left channel shouting, "Jimmy Mac," and I just lifted it into that area for Bobby. But as you'll see, when the ball lands, the ball actually lifts up a bit. And that is because I've not only lifted it in there, I've lifted it in with a little bit of spin underneath the ball so that when it hit the floor, it wouldn't roll on. It stays there. And Bobby has to come back a wee bit to hit the ball. But Bobby, we knew, was a really good striker of the ball, both feet. He was a good volleyer of the ball. And me and him used to spend a lot of time in the gym, and Bobby's hit it perfectly. He's totally caught Alex Stepney off guard. You can see he's off guard because he didn't think Bobby would hit it so quick. And Bobby's caught him beautifully. And that was definitely a skill that Bobby was capable of doing. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer wee guy. And I still miss him, and I miss Ozzy.
I know you played in the 1966 FA Cup final for Sheffield Wednesday, didn't you? To my knowledge, it was your only major honour, Jim, so I'm sure you're very proud of the FA Cup medal. But I guess just 10 years later, how sweet it was to come along and win the final.
Yes, it was sweet to come and win it 10 years later. But the thing I wanted to get over to Nicky Holmes and Paul Gilchrist and the younger guys, i.e. Ian Turner, to a certain extent Peachy and Bobby Stokes as well, was, look, I played in this game 10 years ago and the game went past so quickly, and I was saying to them, take your time, enjoy it, just soak in the atmosphere, and when you go out there, leave it all out on the pitch. It's no good as being back in the dressing room and we've still got energy to burn. We need to get rid of it on the pitch, especially the young guys running around for myself and for Peter Osgood.
I could talk to you for hours, Jim, but one final question before I pass you back to Will then. The memories of the bus trip around Southampton, I think that's the other thing. My dad still goes on about it now, 40 years later, the memories of that bus trip of you guys going through town and it being mobbed. So I just wonder for some of us that maybe don't remember it, your memories of that bus trip celebrating the win the day after in Southampton.
Yeah, obviously we took our coach to Eastleigh and we jumped on the open deck bus there, and we got on it, and the memories were fantastic. The people of Southampton back then, with due respects, were quite reserved, but they certainly forgot all about that weekend, and they come out in their thousands, and it was wonderful to see them supporting us and supporting this fabulous little club that had brought a trophy back at last. So it was an amazing weekend. I remember the chairman when we got up into the city chambers, into the town hall. The chairman, George Reader, God rest his soul, he come up to me, and I was sitting down, and he mentioned to me, he says, I was very pleased with you yesterday, Jim. And I said, oh, why was that, Mr. Chairman? He says, well, you put that article in the paper that you were gunning for Tommy Docherty. He says, I was just a wee bit afraid that you might put two fingers up to him in front of the royal box. And I said, Mr. Chairman, there was no need for anything. We won the cup.
We don't have any more questions for you, Jim. I wish I did, because I could, like Ben, talk to you probably all evening long about the Saints. What I will say, though, is that, and I think I say this for everyone, Leon and Ben, you were part of probably, if not the best day of Southampton supporters' lives, our history, and our great club. We really do thank you for playing your part and being an absolute professional. And thank you for coming on the show today.
It's a pleasure for me, and good luck to everybody. And of course, good luck to Southampton. I think I'm down there in a couple of months' time. I'm coming down for one of the games. And I'm hoping to do another event in Southampton. So if everybody can keep a lookout for that. We had Matt Letizia doing the last one, and Mickey was supposed to do it as well, but unfortunately Mickey wasn't well. He had a bit of sciatica, and Laurie took his place. But look out for it, guys. I'm coming down with a few more legends for you. Thanks for having me, guys.
that does it for this week's episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. Special thanks for this week's episode goes out to Will Dawe of Saints Archive, as well as Leon and Ben Stanfield of the Total Saints Podcast. They are the ones who originally set up the Total Recall segment, and I'm proud to be able to have it here on this show now. We will be putting together future episodes of the Total Recall segment, so if you have any players that you would like to hear on, let us know. We'll try and do our best. Also, if you don't want to wait for that, there are more episodes that have already been done by the Total Saints Podcast, which you can find on the Total Saints Podcast feed or over at saintsarchive.com. In addition to being partnered with the Saints Archive, we are also partnered with the Southampton Page, who you can find on Twitter at Southampton Page and on Instagram at Southampton Page 1. Follow them for all your Southampton FC news and needs, and keep up to date with everything that's going on around the club right now. The logo for this show is done by Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. For all your matchday edits, polls, competitions, and more, be sure to check out the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. Thank you very much for listening, and if you are enjoying the show, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want some extra stuff, head on over to patreon.com/SFC Delivery. There you can find additional episodes to the show, a private chat, and a little bit extra. So, as always, we'll be back next Tuesday with another episode of the show. And until then, remember, together, we march on.